Beads of Courage allow children with cancer to record their journey using beads, each one expressing a different courage, experience, or milestone. These are mine. 48 dressing changes, 41 community nurse visits, 65 times a needle entered my body, 25 clinic visits, 6 times I was isolated in a hospital room away from the ward. 5 times I experienced challenges with my medication or mobility. 2 samples that were taken of my tumour and bone marrow for testing. 30 radiation treatments. 1 birthday. 139 chemotherapy sessions. 4 care team visits. 1 bead for when my Hickman line was placed, which is a long hollow tube that sits above the veins of your heart, giving medication and taking bloods easier. 1 bead for when it was placed and 1 bead for when it was removed. 4 times I lost my hair. 21 inpatient admissions, and 4 times I was anaesthetized. 398 beads. 398 times I was told to be brave. 398 times I was told to keep fighting. 398 times I felt like giving up. 1 completion of treatment. 1 time I was told I had won. I've won? Me? It didn't feel like I'd won. It almost felt like I'd lost. And it definitely didn't feel like I'd fought hard enough to get there. In fact, on my 6th inpatient chemotherapy session, I decided that I didn't want to fight anymore. I was in Jacksonville, Florida. Part of my treatment plan included proton beam therapy, which at the time wasn't available in the UK. The NHS sent me and my family to America for 3 months. I remember sitting in the hot car blazed with Floridian sun on my way to chemo, chewing on a piece of toast I knew would be the last thing I could stomach for the next 3 days. It was in the middle of this thought that I began to cry. I cried in the car, I cried in the lift, I cried in the waiting room, I cried at the front desk. I was completely inconsolable. I didn't want to have to do this anymore. I didn't want to have to do this to live. Nurses rushed around me, trying to get the bold British girl to stop crying. They tried 3 colouring books, 2 soft toys, 1 therapy dog, 1 clown, and 1 Reiki therapist. Whilst these various bribes might work for the average, maybe younger child, they were no match for a furious 15-year-old. Rather inevitably, the final item that was brought to my hospital room was the glowing chemotherapy IV bag. I didn't have the energy to fight anymore, which went both ways in trying to fight the nurse hanging up the chemotherapy drip. I felt defeated. I felt like I'd already lost. For me, the loss of control was the defining factor in what made having cancer as a young person so difficult. I want you to think back to how life felt when you were 15. I'm going to make the educated guess and say this likely involved some questionable fashion choices, making many mistakes, and pursuing some love interests that weren't worth your time. Naturally, life at 15 revolves around school, forming new relationships, breaking boundaries, and building an identity separate from your parents. Your world feels very small, with the decisions at your fingertips. A cancer diagnosis as a young person puts this all on hold. It takes you from one extreme, where you feel as if you hold all control, to another, where you're too immunosuppressed to go to school, you're too sick to bother making new friends, and you have to rely on your parents to take care of you again. Your world suddenly feels very overwhelmingly big, and not in an exciting way. Like when you move to a new city or apply to university at 18. There is only one sequence of events that means you might get out of this. The possibilities and questions are endless, but awful. Will I survive? Will I ever feel the same again? Will the people I meet as I grow older be repulsed by my scars, inside and out? It felt completely contradictory to be told there was nothing in my control I could do that would affect my prognosis, and then, in the next breath, be told I could fight it all away. It implied there was a choice. Being a young person is a period in all of our lives where we're supposed to make mistakes, we're meant to take risks and learn how to interact with the world. My cancer stole that luxury. Combative language and war metaphors are ingrained in the way we talk about cancer. They won their fight, they lost their fight, they didn't fight hard enough, they fought just enough to win. The military personification of cancer was something I heard overwhelmingly when I was being treated in paediatric services, as it often had a motivational purpose in getting children through harsh and intensive treatments. It transforms cancer from this abstract mutation of cells into a tangible evil being in an attempt to make the unknown less terrifying. The fighting language felt suffocating and unavoidable at times. At the hospital, I might hear doctors and nurses telling me to fight. At the train station, I would look up to see billboards and posters plastered with "We can beat cancer together." I would open my phone to headlines and social media posts notifying their viewers that yet another person had won or yet another person had lost. Each time I encountered it, I had to relive it all, that loss of control that I felt. In February 2018, I was in remission. I'd finished my treatment and I had won. This was all I'd been able to think about for months. This was my finish line. My gold medal, my key to freedom. No more chemo, no more radiation, and no more beeping machines. Winning was not what I dreamt of. My hair didn't magically grow back. I wasn't filled with energy and glowing skin. I didn't feel like I trusted my body again, and I definitely didn't feel like I had won. The trauma of my cancer plummeted my mental health to an all-time low. I'd won because I'd escaped death. I'd lost because I had to escape it in the first place. But either way, all the time, I could never feel like I had lost, and I always had to look like I was winning. How ungrateful would I be if I didn't? What if my cancer came back and I had to fight it all over again? For some people, the end goal is not to finish treatment. It is to live with their illness and manage their symptoms. To assume winning is within reach for all people with cancer demonstrates a lack of awareness for what cancer truly is. And to those that have died, it disrespects the strength they held throughout their journeys. The language we use around cancer should address it as it actually is. It is complex, it is unique, it is heartbreaking, awful, and terrible, but it is never anyone's fault for not fighting it hard enough. We can fight this narrative. Young people do not want to be told how they should think or how they should feel. Stop making assumptions. Ask them, how do you want to talk about your cancer? How can I best create a space where you can speak freely about your experiences? Instead of contributing to the loss of control caused by cancer, Give the individual a chance to take back their agency and release the pressure on completing cancer. Respect experiences, recognise this is a life-changing diagnosis, and reflect on the language you use to talk about cancer. In doing so, you will be able to create a compassionate environment in which young people can navigate cancer on their own terms with dignity.